Once, there was a boy named Pip. He grew up in a poor village on the edge of the marshes, raised by his sister and her blacksmith husband, Joe. Joe was simple, honest, and kind, the kind of man who worked with his hands and slept with a clean conscience. But Pip wanted more. He'd look at the soot on Joe's hands, the rough clothes, the small house, and feel the quiet shame. Somewhere deep down, he believed life had to be bigger than this. Then, one day, everything changed. While wandering in the graveyard, Pip met a convict, a desperate, half-starved man who begged him for food and a file to break his chains. Terrified, Pip helped him. It was an act of kindness born out of fear, but it would echo through his entire life. Not long after, Pip was invited to the home of Miss Havisham, an eccentric, wealthy woman who had been abandoned on her wedding day. Her house was frozen in time, the clock stopped, the cake rotting on the table. And there, Pip met Estella, beautiful, proud, and cold as glass. From that moment, Pip's heart wasn't his anymore. He fell in love with her, even as she looked down on him for being common. Every cruel word she spoke carved a scar of ambition in him. He swore he'd become someone worthy, someone she could never look down upon again. Then, one evening, a lawyer appeared at Pip's door. He told Pip that an unknown benefactor had given him a fortune, enough to move to London and become a gentleman. No explanation, no name, just opportunity. Pip's heart nearly burst. He thought Miss Havisham had rewarded him. He thought this was fate, that Estella would see him now, dressed fine, educated, respected. So he left home. He left Joe. He left behind the people who had loved him without condition. London dazzled him, the clothes, the parties, the voices dripping with self-importance. Pip learned how to talk like them, walk like them, and most painfully, think like them. He stopped writing home. He began to feel embarrassed of Joe's simplicity, of his accent, of his kindness. The boy who once played in the mud now looked down on the man who raised him. For a while, it felt like success, but something inside him started to ache, that subtle emptiness that follows when you trade authenticity for approval. Then, one night, years later, everything fell apart. Pip's mystery benefactor revealed himself, and it wasn't Miss Havisham. It wasn't anyone elegant or noble. It was the convict, the same man Pip had helped in the graveyard all those years ago. This man had escaped, worked, and built a life in secret, and from the shadows he had sent Pip the money, the education, the great expectations. Pip was horrified. The fortune he had built his identity on came from a criminal. His pride shattered in an instant. Everything he had stood upon, the money, the title, the admiration, felt dirty, fake. For the first time, he saw the truth. He had chased prestige, but lost his soul. He had run from love, but found loneliness. When the convict was caught and sentenced to die, Pip stayed by his side, caring for him, comforting him, grateful in a way words can't describe. Because through that man, Pip learned that generosity isn't about wealth, it's about gratitude. After his death, Pip lost everything. His fortune vanished, his friends disappeared, even Estella drifted away. But in losing everything, Pip finally found himself. He returned to his village, older, humbler, but finally at peace. He walked to Joe's forge, unsure if he'd be welcomed, but Joe, gentle as always, simply smiled and said, "You've come home, Pip." And in that moment, Pip understood something he never could before. The richest people aren't the ones with the biggest houses or the finest suits. They're the ones who love without condition, who forgive without keeping score, who live with kindness that doesn't need an audience. Here's the thing. Pip's story isn't just about Victorian England. It's about us. How often do we measure ourselves by other people's eyes? How often do we trade contentment for the illusion of more? And how many times do we walk away from those who loved us most, chasing those who never cared? The world will always tempt you to look richer, sound smarter, rise higher. But every step away from humility takes you further from peace. Because in the end, character is the only currency that never loses value.